I haven't started yet.
Okay.
Okay, now be quiet.
You're about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio. Today, we are pleased to have a returning guest, Andy Sutton, an economist from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Andy is a former, financial consultant. He's actually a dropout of the system because he wanted to dedicate his time and his efforts to exposing the corruption within our financial system. He no longer found it viable for him to advise people on financial matters when the system in and of itself is corrupt. Obviously, if you're not part of the corrupt system, which he's not, you can lose your shirt and you can't give proper advice. Is that about right, Andy?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Okay.
Yep,
close. Okay. And he is the publisher of the blog My 2 Cents, and you can find that on Sutton-Associates.net, and you click on the tab episodes, and every month or so he has a very, very interesting diatribe on a certain aspect of our financial system, which I always find not only interesting, informative, but also entertaining. And I don't know where you get your sense of humor. I'm always expecting to see you on stand-up comedy someday. And I think you do a great job. That with your financial knowledge would be dynamite. I want to be your consultant, your manager on that. Maybe we'll make some real big money. Good morning.
There we go.
Thanks a lot for being with us, Andy. Andy, I want to start with a little diatribe, if I can. Okay.
Go ahead.
Too often, people talk about and even approach me about our economy, and I tell them, I'm a demographics guy, I'm a trends guy. I don't look at things on a day-to-day basis on what happened to General Motors. I don't look at that. I don't listen to it. I spend no time with it. I said, but you have to look at where we were. I said, back in the good old days, when I drove around my Chevy Hot Rod, I was a muscle car guy, and I pulled in a service station. A guy would come out, and he'd pump my gas, and I'd give him $2 because gas was like 20 to 25 cents a gallon at the time, and put enough gas in the car to go, and I'd leave. And I said, guess what? I left. I gave the guy, let's say, $2, but I had $2 worth of gasoline, and it was a bargain at the time. And I said, so I was flush. I didn't owe anyone money. I said, today people show up with their real expensive cars, of which, of course, I never owed money on a car because I had old cars. You didn't pay much for a '51 Buick Roadmaster back in those days. And today people buy new cars, 0% financing. They got all of this debt on their backs. But when they go to a service station to buy the $10 or $15 or $20 worth of gasoline, and in many cases $40 or $50 tank of gasoline, they put it on a credit card. So when they leave that service station, they are now $50 or $40 further in debt. And I said, so the world has changed from one in which people produce things, save their money, and were shunned debt like the plague, to one in which people almost embrace debt because they can own everything and anything if they can just make the monthly payments. And I said, if you look at the trend, that bodes very poorly for where we're going in the United States. And is that an oversimplification, or would you like to expand on that, or even tell me if I'm wrong, which I'm never wrong. Never been wrong in my life, but go ahead, go for it anyway.
Actually, that's a really good observation. And if I can share a brief story of my own, I had occasion, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, to spend about 2 hours with a gentleman, a really nice guy, and World War II veteran, and we got to talking, and he asked me, do you have a family? And I told him, I've got one daughter, and he's like, I really feel sorry for her generation. well, there's about 100 reasons why you might feel sorry. So I asked him, what aspect, what way are you feeling sorry? What portion of their existence? And he said, well, this whole thing, with the economy and everybody's in debt and all this other stuff. And he was telling me about his kids and his grandkids and just how things had changed from exactly what you had just talked about to the way things are now. But the thing that he said that really stuck with me was, back in his day when he was growing up and being a young man and all that, you formed your opinions on what was going on by what you observed. Everybody knew that there was a depression going on because all they had to do was look around.
Right.
If you lived in the grain belt, you saw people losing farms to the banks, and people were starving, and they were, the churches were giving food to people and all this kind of stuff and all that. Today, all we've done is we've taken a veneer and we've put it over it. So instead of people, being homeless, now they live in subsidized housing. Instead of people starving, they have EBT cards. And it goes right down the line. Instead of people being sick somewhere and all this other stuff, now they are just, they get free health care, free this, free that. It goes right on down the line. So when we observe and just look on the surface, we see, a society that pulls into the gas station, gets their gas and leaves. We see a society that's out shopping. We see a society that's eating at trendy chain restaurants, paying $12 for a burger and fries. That's what we see. But you have to kind of, if you really want to get at what's going on and what's all behind that, you got to pull all that away. You got to scrape that out of the way and say, all right, well, what are they paying with? All right, well, that guy just bought his gas with a credit card. He owes $300,000 on a $200,000 house. This whole, you really have to, you got to pull away a couple layers of, frankly, Bravo Sierra to really see what is going on. And this is partially, and personally, I think it was done on purpose. This whole thing to get people accustomed to debt, it's neo-feudalism, really. That's what I call it. Right. If you remember the feudal system, people were in debt. You had the lords, the vassals, the slaves, so forth. We're kind of having a recurrence of that in today's society, and debt is the mechanism by which people are brought into that bondage again. And they don't see it because, hey, I get to have. Right. I need to have this now. They've been inculcated with us this idea that I need to have this now. I'm not going to wait a year until I actually have the money to pay for it. I want it now. And because the shyster down there at the finance company said, well, I'll give you 0% for a whole year. They make it sound like a good deal. And we're not intelligent enough and we don't critically think enough as a society to look at that and say, all right, where are the minefields in this? Where's the catch? There's always a catch. So where's the catch? Is it that if I'm a day late, I pay all the interest on the entire loan? Or is it, where's this guy getting this money that he's giving to me for free? Don't I realize that he's getting it from somebody else for freer?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what people aren't thinking about. And that's why, and like I said, the gentleman, we had a great discussion on this, and we're just talking about how things used to be and why people were not necessarily smarter then, they just paid more attention. And there wasn't as much veneer over things. And that's one thing we've never learned in this country, is to dig past all that and look deeper. Yeah, so it really dovetails with what you said.
Yeah, and I'm really negative when I speak to young people. I said, you guys don't stand a chance. I said, I don't know what percent. I'm not sure if I'm in the top 10%, 5%, 3%, 2%, 1%. I have no idea. But when I was young, and I tell the story, this has got to be the 1,000th to 20th time I told the story. The first thing I did the day after Christmas was open a Christmas club account at the bank. And that means I put $10 a month away. And then at Christmas time, about December 10th or something like that, I went to the bank and they gave me 12 payments of $10, $120. I withdrew it. I got a little interest on it. So maybe I got $125 or something like that. And then I went out and I did my Christmas shopping, and I was flush. And if I was smart, I'd have a few bucks left over, of which I used for my first payment which I made the day after Christmas. I went back to the bank, opened the Christmas club for the next year. So I was not only not in debt, but if I was smart enough, I wound up making a few bucks on the deal because I saved money. Now, here's a strange part. I admit, I know I don't look more than 24 years old, but I'm 72. And on television, all you hear about is the golden years in retirement and what are you going to do during your retirement and all this. You want to know something? I've been on cruises. I've been to Europe. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to Caribbean. I find it boring. I mean, it's very pretty and the whole night, nice break, but you can only sit on the beach and watch the water so long. And here I am at 72. I am still working. And guess what I'm still doing? I'm still contributing to my 401k plan and my business. It's not 401, it's an IRA account, and I'm still saving money on the side. And they say, well, what are you saving it for? I said, I don't know. I said, but this is what I do. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm not going to be broke. Now, here's the sorrowful part. While I'm still working, making an income, have no expenses. My house is paid for. My 1996 Subaru is paid for, by the way, 284,000 miles. I'm very proud of it. Runs beautifully. Have no desire for a new car unless I need it for business. And so I have no real expenses. My wife is an audiologist. I've opened 5 audiology practices for her. I paid for this entire studio cash. Microphones just the microphones in the studio is well over $1,000. And I didn't buy the highest, but I write good night. This mic was like $350, $400 alone, and but it's all paid. I have the whole studio. And they said, "Where'd you get the money for it?" I said, "Well, I paid cash for it." And people don't understand that. I said, "But here's the sorrowful part: is that now the young people who are grossly in debt are going to school, getting further in debt, buying cars, going further in debt, using credit cards, further in debt, are actually paying my Social Security and my wife's Social Security. We are making good money. I'm making more money today than I have in my life, and I'm only working part-time. While people, the young folks, are working feverishly at underpaid jobs, underpaid according to their education and whatever, and they're grossly in debt, and they will never get out. I am getting wealthier, and they are getting poorer. And I hate saying that. I mean, it sounds very, almost snobbish in a way, but it's the truth. And it's nothing that I did to take money away from anyone, because actually my wife and I are still contributing to Social Security because we're working. So every month we contribute, we get some back. But that's the way it works. And all we're doing is doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And yet we are becoming enriched in our older years, and God, I hope I live another 50 years. But the younger people, I don't see any way out, because we are now, Dr. Kulikov says, 3 years ago, he said we're like $223 trillion in overall debt. If you include the unfunded debt. And he says, you can't get out of this. I mean, the world can't get out of this. Where does this lead? I mean, how could this lead to anything but a horrible conclusion?
Well, that's just to your show and read my column, that we're very America-centric in our thinking. And the whole thing over in Europe has raised something of an awareness about all of this. But what I think people need to understand is it's not just here, it's everywhere. It's the whole globe. I mean, yeah, you have your Russias, your Chinas that have a whole bunch of gold reserves. They might be in slightly better shape. But even you start digging into China a little bit, and you can find a lot of problems. They have a huge overproduction of real estate and that kind of thing. They're kind of out where we were back in 2006, 2005, somewhere in that area. So they've got issues. There is not a nation on this earth that isn't compromised in some way, financially or economically. Again, we tend to look at, well, America. We can never go broke, or we can never fail, because this is America and this is what we're taught to say, and we grab that flag and wave it. I got news for you, people. We've been broke for years.
Right.
And it's that veneer that I was talking about before with the guy from the World War II vet that we had the discussion. It's all that veneer that's keeping people from really seeing what's going on. Dr. Kulikov is a great mind, and he's one of those people that he's able to peel off some of that veneer and help you to kind of really get a look into things. and see what's going on. But these kids, and the sad thing is, I taught business and econ for kids. Like when they come into that age group where they start to get the part-time job and that sort of thing, they're like you and me, because I'm the same way you are, just on a smaller scale. They understand that. They get it, because that's the innate thinking, the innate instinct, if you will. The God-given thought is to, all right, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to save, and I'm going to live. They've almost been reprogrammed, if you will. I have to go into debt for student loans because if I want to get any kind of a decent job, the baloney that you hear. And these high school guidance counselors, I'm going to tell you what, they ought to be in handcuffs, a lot of them, for this stuff. Oh, if you go to get a college degree, you're going to make this much, times more than somebody who does. You hear all these numbers. They're old numbers.
That's right.
They're numbers from a bygone era.
That's right.
And they just keep repeating it. It's like doublethink or group speak or whatever that 1984 word is. Where it's double plus ungood. If you don't have a college degree, you better get to college, young man. Even though you have no clue what you want to do, go find yourself and spend $50,000 a year doing it. That's kind of where and by the time they've been taught, that's kind of like the in. And then these filthy banks, the Bank of America, the Chase, the Capital One scum sit eagerly in the college campuses, around the last week of August, first week of September. And they get those incoming freshmen. Oh, you just turned 18. Free at last from mom and dad. Here, we have this great credit card. And while you're at it, we'll give you a set of, shot glasses or whatever garbage that they're peddling this week. As a thank you for applying for a credit card. And you know what? Everybody can be in the club.
See, I would take the shot glass, I would cut up the credit cards, and I'd sell the shot glasses and take the money and invest it, we have a caller on line one, right? Line one, caller, you're on the air. Your question and your first name, please.
Hello, Joe. This is Lloyd from Henrietta.
Good morning, Lloyd. I'm glad to hear from you.
I called that other number, that 646 number this time.
Okay.
I've got a question for Andy. And I know he mentioned China in there with the mix of the debt and such. But, China does not have the central bank type of situation we do where they borrow their money into existence. They actually have a fiat currency rather than a monetized debt currency. Whereas our wealth is, even Joe, he's paid for all of his stuff, but he's paid for it with borrowed money.
That's correct.
In the sense that all our money is borrowed into existence. Do you not think that even though China has all this undeveloped stuff that they've got over there, all the houses they're building or buildings they're building, that maybe they're in a whole lot better shape than whenever you judge it from the way we look at our debt, that maybe they're in a whole lot better situation than we are?
Oh, absolutely. Think of it like a curve or a progression. We're at one point along the progression, and we're certainly a lot further than they are. China is where we were, if I had to put an era on it, probably about like the 1950s. We had the fiat currency, but we still had the gold to back it up. We were still settling the current account in gold. Maybe it was even a little earlier than that because we were using a central bank model in the 50s. But you get the general idea. We still had actual, true, unbridled, unborrowed wealth, and obviously we squandered it away. Now, what they do with what they've got is, yet to be seen. They do have some structural problems, but they're not so far gone yet that they can't be dealt with. Unfortunately, that country is still really trapped in the whole Marxist communist model. They're kind of stuck there, and it seems like they've taken a few steps to get away. Whereas, the United States, we're kind of moving towards that in a way, actually in many ways. So to answer your question, overall, China's definitely much better off than we are. They're on that progression. They still kind of determine their own destiny at this point. Whereas we, like Joe pointed out, what Lawrence Kotlikoff has talked about so vehemently over the years. We're not past the point of determining our own destiny. We're on a crash course, and crash is a broad word. I think slow burn course is probably more accurate. Whereas, we really can't. What are we going to do with $240 trillion? We can't. We're going to monetize it. I mean, that's a joke. What we're going to do? We're going to cut off all Social Security and Medicare benefits and tax 100% of everything. So you still wouldn't pay it off. That's how far gone we are. That's what you get when you scrape away all the veneer. But yeah, you're absolutely right. In every country in this whole system, you take the Eurozone, and obviously they're under a central bank model. Australia's under a central bank model. Canada's under a central bank model. All of these countries, they're in different places along that progression. But the progression is when you go fiat, and we'll see if China breaks the mold or not in probably the next 15, 20 years. When you go fiat, this is where you end up. You end up where we're at, because this is really nothing more than a function of human nature. It's the inclination towards greed. It's the inclination towards instant gratification. They may be a little bit more disciplined than we are, but my opinion would be, and we may all be long gone by the time this happens, eventually they'll end up where we are now.
Lloyd, your
response? That's kind of unfortunate. It would be kind of nice to have at least one country in the world that didn't fall for the central bank scam. Am I not correct that Russia has basically gotten rid of their Rothschild structured type of bank, and they're in a similar situation to China?
Yeah, that's kind of why everybody keeps taking pot shots at Russia. This is what happens. You take these countries, let me just digress for a second, Lloyd, because this is really good stuff here. If you go back to, what year was that? It was after 9/11. George Bush got up, little Bush, shrub. He got up and he said, he called it the axis of evil. Remember that? And I'm sure Joe does.
Yes, I sure remember.
Well, all those countries had something in common, and it was that they hadn't embraced this whole World Bank, International Monetary Fund system. And what they neglected, the guys they neglected to put on there were Russia and China, and really kind of Brazil too, and to a lesser extent India. But they mentioned these smaller rogue states. See, they've always been afraid of the BRICS because they knew that the BRICS, even then, I mean, we're going back almost 15 years, even then the BRICS had that leverage over the rest of the system. These guys who are peddling this crap that we put in our wallets and call money, they know it's a joke. That's the thing. They bash gold and then they buy it out the back door. They do the same thing with silver. They pump up the dollar, and at the same, with their big mouths and their hot air, while at the same time they're getting rid of their dollars behind closed doors. These people know it's a joke, and that was why the BRICS were not included in that axis of evil of North Korea, Afghanistan, Libya. Who were the other one? Iraq was in there, Iran, all those countries that were in that whole thing. See, the problem, and this is why I think Russia and China and these other guys are going to end up going on the same path, is because they've moved now, and they're going to do their own central bank. They've got the BRICS bank concept that they want to implement. And sure, it's going to be gold-based and all that, so it's going to start out okay, but if you look back, our money used to be backed by silver. You used to be able in the 1820s, and even past that, to go into a bank with paper notes and swap it for silver. And then we all know what happened. They kept trying for this central bank, and that's why Andrew Jackson got in so much trouble, is because he busted up an attempt to do that. And that's how they honored him. They put his face on the most common bill out there, I think, or the second most common bill, the $20 bill. He hated central banks. He hated the idea. He hated fiat currency. So we'll stick his face right on the center of one of these counterfeit bills that we put out there. This is how, and Ben Franklin, same thing. I know, I'm way off here. We're like 3 tangents off. Ben Franklin was just like Andrew Jackson. They hated it. Washington hated it. They put their faces right on the phony money. I mean, this is how they wave it in your face. I mean, but anyway, getting back to China, I know Joe's laughing at me here. See, now I get excited. This is what happens. We start talking, Andy gets excited, everybody laughs.
I love it.
I'm about to have a stroke here.
I could listen to this for a month. Go ahead, keep on going.
So China and Russia, they're doing their BRICS bank, and they're gonna do a gold-backed currency, a gold-backed trade note, whatever it ends up being called, and it's gonna start out good, and eventually over time it's gonna get perverted. At least that's what's happened every single other time in history. So I'm going with history and the odds on that one. Right. But I will say it may well take a very long time for that to happen. I mean, it did here. I mean, it took us a long time to get where we are right now.
All right, then. Well, thank you.
Lloyd, thank you so much for calling Liberty Talk Radio. Certainly appreciate it. Oh, by the way, Lloyd, may I ask you a question? Lloyd, are you there?
I suppose so.
Okay, you're still there. Okay. Did you try to call the toll-free number of 855-866-1170? I don't know if it's working.
I did not try that number.
Okay, well, you may want to write that down. We're going to, but that's our new number. I'm not. I wasn't certain whether or not you attended the call. It did not work, but either number would be fine. Well, thank you very much for calling, Lloyd. I hope to hear from you again.
Thanks, Lloyd. That was great.
Okay. Yeah, Lloyd brings up a great point. And now we have Russia wanting to be included in a basket of currencies. If there's a basket, they're talking about a basket of currencies because obviously everyone sees that the U.S. Currency, it is not long for this world to be the world's reserve currency. I mean, everyone knows it. You know, it's like the crazy uncle locked in the closet. No one wants to talk about it. We all know exactly where it's going. By the way. What's that?
That's you. You're the crazy uncle.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting, and I'm gonna break rank just for a second, is that we had last week 2 episodes where we had a chairman from the Young Americans for Liberty, and also the chairman for the Students for Liberty. And I asked both of them the same question. I said, well, when you speak to your professors, your economics professors, about Austrian economics, about the sound money and all that, I said, what kind of response do you get? And apparently they receive a very, very negative response or no response at all. It's like, you obviously not going to pass your test the way you think. And what is that the professors, many of whom have doctorates, don't want to engage in a logical discussion. They literally just get, they just want to say you're wrong, and they want to cut it off. And here we have universities which should be bastions of higher learning, of thinking, of thought, of conversation, of debating, and all this. And what they do is they get totally shut off if they don't memorize what is being said. And it's like being back in grammar school. You just listen and repeat what the teacher says, and then you get your mark and you go on. And I'm finding that many students that go to college cannot think anymore. I mean, they don't think because they get punished if they think. And so we can't even talk to them about this because they're not accustomed to thinking. I have teachers in my own family. I mean, if you bring up a subject, a controversial, and that's their opinion, you're not disagreeing, sometimes they just cry or they walk out of the room or they don't want to talk about it. Hey, you're a teacher. You're supposed to be able to dialogue this information and say, how do you address this with the students, and what approaches the student. They don't even want to talk about it. And most can't talk about it because they know very, very little about it, the subject at all. They know what they hear or see on television, and that's about it. The mainstream television, anyway. But I forgot where I was going with that. But what disturbs me is that. As we go down this road, without an understanding of the monetary system by the public, it's going to be the conversion to wherever we're going is going to be even more painful because no one's preparing for it. Everyone is assuming that what the government is doing is correct, everything that Andy Sutton says is lunatic talk, so we don't listen to him. Joe Cristiano should have been locked up a long time ago. And so, that type of thinking. So as a result, when something does happen, they're going to say, how did that happen? And then all the excuses come out as to how it's happening or why it's happening. And of course, the Janet Yellen et al. Blame everyone other than themselves for creating this problem.
Well, I'm gonna call a guy out here real quick if you don't mind, and he's kind of a part of this whole problem thing. And he's Mike Norman. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He goes on Fox a lot. Well, he used to. I don't think he's been on so much anymore, but he's one of these guys, and they have this like the pillar, if you will, of their school of economic thought is that we're rich in the United States because whenever the government borrows money, it automatically passes through whatever, this whole perversion of kind of like a trickle down. And I hate to even use that word or that term. It makes everybody richer when the government borrows money by accounting function. And that's their motto right there, by accounting function. So I went around the rose bush about 13 times, with these guys, and did you realize that when you borrow, that's not a one-sided transaction.
That's right.
There's a repayment involved, and they will not acknowledge that there's a repayment involved. And I said to this guy, I said, look, all right, obviously you think your way. This is where I'm coming from. This is when I still did my own radio. I said, look, you come on my show. I'll give you 30 minutes, and you can say whatever you want. And this is going back to what you were saying about these professors and so forth. You have 30 minutes. I won't interrupt you. I won't say a word, and I will promise you that at the outset so everybody can hear it. You have 30 minutes to say whatever you want. And then I'm going to take 30 minutes, and I'm going to say what, I'm going to give this the sound money, low deficit, laissez-faire Austrian model. Let the people decide. Let them hear both sides, and let them decide which they think makes sense. He wouldn't go for it. He would not do it. And I knew he wasn't going to do it because, I started graduate school in 1997, so I was coming up on 20 years ago. And things weren't quite as bad then. But at the time, my monetary policy class was taught by a professor who was actually in exile from South Africa for speaking out against apartheid. And the required reading for her class was The Creature from Jekyll Island, which was fairly new at that time.
Wow.
And the second book was a book by John Grider. It's called The Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country. Now, Grider's book is about, it's about 2 axe handles thick.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it's pretty big. It's like 800-900 pages. It's a long read, but if you really want to understand how the monetary system in this country works and how that stupid criminal bank works, those are 2 books you should absolutely read. And by the time I got done with that class, and I loved it, it was the best class I had in graduate school. I learned the most in that. I learned more in that class than I did the rest of it combined. And the funny thing was, you would get these other guys and you'd nail them to the wall with this sound money stuff. And finally they'd get so mad they'd say, it's this way because I say it is.
That's right.
That was the final. They didn't phone a friend. They didn't do a 50-50. What was the other one? They could ask the audience. Isn't that the thing on The Millionaire?
Yeah.
No, this was their final answer because I say so.
Right.
Oh, really? All right. Well, hey, at least we see who the phonies are in this whole thing. But you're exactly right. They train these kids not to think. They do. The kids come in, like I said, they come into this system understanding the tenets of hard work, savings, capital, foregoing of consumption, all this stuff, all the Austrian model stuff. They come in understanding. They go out, dead thinkers with credit card debt and student loans.
Right. Andy, we're going to take a break, but we do have a call that's been holding on, so we'll take the call first, then we'll go to break. Caller, what line are they on?
They're on line 2.
Caller, you're on line 2, please. Your question, your first name, please.
Joe, Andy, this is Jim from Bixby. How are you guys this morning?
Fine.
Hey, Jim.
Good. Nice to see you guys. I like this new setup with Skype and the video. You're looking marvelous this morning, Andy.
I'm sorry. I'm surprised I haven't broken your computer screen.
He wants to borrow money from you, Andy. Watch out.
Hey, I'll always have a lot on my mind regarding economics and finance, but I just was planning just to listen in this morning. But I'm reading the local rag, the wonderful Tulsa World, about. Don't know if you saw it in the news that. Headline: banks to plead guilty to rigging markets, and the four big banks have agreed to pay more than $5 billion in penalties and plead guilty to rigging currency markets. And of course, it's the normal cabal: J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Barclay, and Royal Bank of Scotland. But it's interesting, if you read further, it says that the punishment announced Wednesday may have limited practical consequences. The four banks will be able to continue to do business in the currency markets. No executives were charged. No executives were charged. And then it says that while the fines are large, it's just a fraction of what the institutions have made through currency trading over the past decade. So I just wanted to ask you, between the LIBOR scandal and the rigging of this, does just greed and corruption, human nature that you referred to, is there anything that isn't rigged? And with this cozy relationship between the too big to fail banks and government, just a broken system that we have to live with?
Yeah, obviously they're too big to jail. Also, see, this is why
exactly.
This is why I stopped doing this. They will come out and they will admit that they did this. You just read it in whatever the local newspaper is there. I don't know what the subscribership is to that paper, but I'm guessing it's probably a substantial amount of people. They will wave it in your face. We rigged the LIBOR. We rigged the currency markets. We rigged this. We rigged the Dow. We rigged everything. $5 billion for those schmucks is like the cost. It's a cost of doing business. It's not a punishment. It's not a fine. You know what? $5 trillion. All right, now we're starting to talk a little bit. This is a joke. That's probably a fraction of a percent of what these clowns made by conducting their illegal activities. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody even gets a slap on the hand. That's like Joe getting a parking ticket, and it's $1 or something like that. You laugh about it. You send your dollar in, and you go on parking illegally. I mean, that's basically what these guys get to do. Nobody goes to jail. No executives ever get charged. If they do fry somebody, it's always some, underling. It's a rogue trader. Nobody else knew about this. Oh, really? This guy's making like 20 times more than anybody else at the Forex desk. But yeah, we're not going to look at that. He's just a bright kid. Come on, really? No, none of the big shots ever go to jail. They get to keep playing golf and doing all their same stuff. And then here's the final slap. Hey, we're not even going to stop them from continuing to do this. We're going to say, you know what, carry on. Go ahead, keep doing it. Anybody who puts money into an account and sits there and looks at the account, whatever, and makes a trade, you need to beware, first of all, that whoever your account is with, I don't care who it is, E trade, F trade, J trade, Z trade, P trade, they trade against you, for starters. They take your shares and they lend them out to other people so that other people can short that stock, which basically is them saying, all right, here's the $5,000 I just got from Jim, and here's the 100 shares of whatever, and we're going to lend those 100 shares to Joe so Joe can short the company. So they're assisting people in trading against their own customers. They do it themselves. They will write options on your shares. They do all kinds of stuff. They are not your friends. They are not friendly like TD Ameritrade likes to advertise, where they have this stupid little mime that comes up and says, "Can I help you?" Yeah, you can help me. Leave me alone. This is what it's all about. But seriously, if you really want to be involved in this system, if you can find that little niche, that little corner of the cesspool that these guys don't mess around with too much, direct register your shares at the transfer agent for whatever company it is.
Right.
You can do it. It's harder to do in IRAs. It's easier to do in non-IRAs because that way it's on the books at the transfer agent, which also, unfortunately, are usually banks also. But at least what you do is you stop your broker from doing the things I just mentioned. And also, if your broker happens to go belly up because they were doing a John Corzine scam or something, he's going to go back into business, by the way. If they're pulling a John Corzine, or they're going to Madoff somebody, at least if you're direct registered, they can't bail in your shares.
Yeah, well, that's why DRIPs are very good. Direct reinvestment programs are very good.
I hadn't heard about Corzine back in the game, but as you know, he was too well connected both in politics and in big business for him to have to.
Oh my gosh, he had the trifecta. He had the trifecta. He was the CEO.
And then the other thing, Andy, it amazes me is, in many industries, if a rigging and corruption and fines like this were public in so many other industries and businesses, it would be the downfall of those companies. Their stock would their stock value would plummet the next day. And my guess is that the stock value of these four banks is just going to keep chugging along and won't even be a blip in the market today.
This is another thing that's a good point that you brought up. This was another point that the gentleman made to me that I was talking about earlier. You go back 40, 50 years ago, there was never a connection between the value of stock and the value of people understood the general idea, well, if a stock is going up, it probably means the company is doing well. Today, not only is that pushed totally, there's never any manipulation except when they choose to admit it. But the whole U.S. economy is distilled for the purposes of the average person into how the stock market does. If the stock market does well, that must mean the economy is doing well. We don't really care if you have a job or not. We don't care how far in debt you are because, look, your government's in debt 100,000 times more than you are. So, hey, everybody does it. You're fine. Everything's good. The market's at 18,000, and you know what? Let's just keep the party going, and pour some more punch into the bowl. That's the simpleton way of thinking that's been pushed on people, and it's like Joe was talking about. People can't think critically anymore. People don't want to because it reveals unpleasant things, and you start talking to somebody who's totally blind to all of this, just for whatever reason. They've just been going about working hard, whatever, trying to keep up. You start talking to them about this stuff, you can actually watch them get scared.
Right.
And then you watch them go into denial. Yeah. That shell comes over. The eyes glaze over, and you're done.
Right. Excuse me, gentlemen. Jim, I don't want you to hang up. Could you hold on? Because I like to keep this conversation going, but we are really late for a break. Could you hold on for 1 minute so we can go for a break, and then we can come back to you, Jim?
Sure thing.
Okay, fine. We'll go for a break, folks. Don't go away. Our number is 646-652-4620. Toll free, 866-855-866-1170. That's our new number, 855-866-1170. Let's hear from you. Okay, let's go.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires for a free consultation. Call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
Steve Harden of the Harden Insurance Agency has over 30 years of experience designing family insurance protection, including retirement planning. Call 918-488-0024 or go to hardenagency.com and request a free in-depth estate and retirement evaluation. We look forward to earning your trust and helping you meet your life goals.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty Talk Radio.
Folks, we're back. This is Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. With us today, we have Andy Sutton, economist from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And his focus right now is exposing to the world the corruption in our financial system, and that's why he's basically a financial dropout person, which I applaud him. We also have on the line, Jim is a caller, and we asked him to hold on. I want to just make a comment and then have you guys comment on I was at a jewelry store, and I don't like jewelry. I don't buy it because I didn't know the value. But there was a little pretty ring that my wife looked at. She said, "Well, that's nice." And I said, "Well, I'll surprise her." So I came back, and it was like $125. It was not a diamond or anything like that. And I show up when I pull up to the store, to the jewelry store. I'm riding in my 1996 Subaru, which is in pretty good shape. And next to me pulls up one of these monster trucks, with the big wheels, where each wheel is probably $1,000, And a gal gets out of the truck, and she has to literally like a little ladder to get down from it, Beautiful, big truck, And we walk in together. And I said to myself, if anyone looked, I said, this woman looks like a multimillionaire, and I look like I'm going to come in there, begging for money. And I go in there, and I'm standing next to her, and what I'm doing is I bought this little ring for $125, and what she was doing is she was selling her jewelry. And I thought to myself, I said, someone should take a picture of this and say, here's someone who appears to be wealthy, own everything, is probably selling the last vestiges of her wealth to put gas in that big mother truck of hers, and here's this guy who, probably doesn't have enough money to buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I'm just buying this little ring I can buy a $10,000 ring, but I'm not going to do it. I don't buy garbage like that, Now my wife may buy it, but I won't. Just as a little surprise for I walk out, and I said, this dichotomy, this was just it was almost like a setup, for my program to say that this is what really happened. And it seems that that's what this world is like. Wait, Preston has a comment to make.
No, I'm not.
My board operator is saying something. Oh, I know. I'm touching the table. I'm hacking you. Well, Preston, let me ask you a question. You're wealthy, aren't you?
No, not at all.
Why aren't you wealthy?
Well, I have $50,000 in student loan debt,
Very good.
And I owe about $67,000 on my house.
And what about, you don't have any credit card debt, do you?
I forgot about that. Yeah, I have about $15,000 in credit card debt. Yes.
But you're so wealthy, $15,000 you didn't even think about. I mean, it wasn't too small. Right.
Well, it was one of those Capital One deals where they were sitting there going, hey, come, get a credit card.
Absolutely. Everything was free, right? Now,
I got a T-shirt.
Oh, you got a free T-shirt. Now, let me ask you another question. And what's the expected day of you paying off all your debts and starting to save money?
I will probably be dead about 12 years.
No, folks, we're not making this up. I mean, I just asked them, and this was not planned. And but your friends, are they in the same boat that you're in, or are they just totally different?
I think they have. I just now started realizing what I wanted to do with my life, so it's taken me a while. But most of them already, they make pretty good money. Yeah, they maybe have some debt, but they can afford that debt.
No, other than your friends that are running drugs. Other than those, how are they doing?
No, a lot of my friends are doing really well. I mean, they do really well. They have six-figure incomes, and they have nice houses, and they owe money on those houses, and they have some credit card debt, but they can live comfortably, and they can pay that debt.
You have friends that have six-figure incomes.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, a lot of friends. Yeah, a lot of my friends do.
Well, what do they do?
Engineers. One's a salesman. Parm. That guy. He sells advertising. So they have pretty decent jobs. They knew what they wanted to do when they got out of school, and I went to school just because my dad told me to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Okay. Yeah. All right. Just wanted to get something from the man on the street.
Yeah. And I'm on the street.
Okay, Jim, you're up again.
Well, that story of the lady in the monster truck who is then selling, expensive vehicle but selling her jewelry is just like I said, a reflection, microcosm of what's happened in our society. I'm sure Andy would agree. Where it's easy credit. We're encouraged and it's promoted to buy things with this easy credit, and everyone wants to keep up with the Joneses. And the idea of saving and investing is a thing of the past. It isn't cool. So, yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And then, of course, I'm sure both of you have read Millionaire Next Door, and so you have the people that live frugally and don't go into debt and save steadily are the ones that are accumulating wealth, but they aren't the visible ones in public to flaunt their net worth. So it's pretty common today, I think. Andy, what's your take on that?
Well, I like to engage in what I call defensive economics or defensive finance, if you will. So, I'm in Joe's boat. Now, I'm not 72. I'm 44, but I don't know anything on my house. We were fortunate. I paid off my student loans. Again, I was fortunate. I got a really good job right out of college, and I had my student loans paid off very quickly while living at home. And that seemed to be the smartest thing to do because that's the way my parents taught me. And for whatever reason, I had a credit card in college, but it had a $500 limit, and my parents were really good. My dad worked in a steel mill. They always taught me, never put on that card what you don't have the cash in your account to pay for. In other words, use the credit card as a convenience, not as a crutch. And what I try to help or encourage people to do is engage in what's called like defensive finance, where, all right, say you're somebody like Preston mentioned who's making really good money and has the really nice house and has that debt. What happens if their company decides, hey, you know what, we don't need so many of these engineers, or we don't need so many salesmen, or you didn't make your numbers this month? You can be laid off at the drop of a dime in this country. There is no loyalty in either direction. People are not really that loyal to companies anymore, nor are companies very loyal to people. So you can go from a really good situation to a really bad one very quickly, unfortunately. That a lot of people I don't think understand. So, I mean, somebody who makes really good money, get the debt. That debt is an albatross. And even if you can, I don't think anybody can actually afford debt. That's kind of where I come from on a personal level. Now, a business, sometimes you have to borrow money if you want to expand, and you're going to take a risk. On a personal level, in this world today, this was not true maybe 40, 50 years ago, but today, I don't think anybody can afford debt because your income can go away very quickly, and that debt is still there. And guess what? You owe money on that mortgage. You don't make a couple payments, the next thing you know, you don't have that house anymore. It happens really, really quickly. So when I tell people you have that big salary, you know what? Don't contribute to the IRA until your debts are paid off. Because if you're contributing to the IRA and it's making 4 or 5% a year, and your debt is 8 or 10% a year, you're losing money. You're better off to pay off the debt. So people have to think differently because the world is different now than it always was. But the sad thing is you pick up the textbook, you listen to the college professor, you listen to the high school guidance counselor, they're giving you flat world economics, the way things used to be. Before we discovered that the world of economics was round, to use a Columbian type analogy there with Christopher Columbus. But that's the thing that people haven't embraced. Because we're supposed to chase the Joneses. We're supposed to get everything we want, whenever we want it, however we want it. This is Burger King on steroids, this country. And picture of you walking into the jewelry store next to the girl with the $14,000 lift kit on her truck.
Right.
That is a perfect picture of America today. You have the people that look like they're doing really well, and they're not. They're trading in their gold, the jewelry, the sterling silverware or whatever. They're selling it all at these little kiosks in the mall to get money to pay for things that they can't even afford.
Right.
And you have a guy like you who's being a cheapskate, by the way. You should get your wife that $10,000 ring. I'm gonna lay into you about that.
I'm in trouble. I should never put this up.
He needs to pay me more. I think he needs to pay me more.
Yeah, you have to pay your board guy some more here. So, but you have a guy like Joe who's sitting there and he drives a 96 Subaru, so that thing's pushing 20 years. And you know what? That's great. I got a 13-year-old truck, and if it drives another 13 years, I'll have it another 13 years. That's just the way we are.
Right.
But I'm not gonna. But I'm.
Hey, I'm driving a 15-year-old Infiniti that I bought in 2001. So right there with you.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, your net worth is only $40 million, Jim. That's why I wouldn't expect you to buy a new car.
Hey, they always call economics the dismal science, right? Economics is the dismal science.
Yeah.
We should start the Dismal Mad Scientist Club. Jim, Joe, and Andy.
Hey, Andy, one last question. I know we're coming up on an hour, and I'll take your answer off air. But I read a lot of stuff that Jim Rickards comes out with. I'm reading his Strategic Intelligence. He says our economy's on a knife's edge or razor's edge between inflation and deflation. And then I've read about a term called biflation, where certain asset classes, experiencing one and others the other. Well, what's your thoughts as to where we're going with that battle? And then I'll just listen to you on Skype.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks. Good talking to you, Andy. See you next month.
Good talking to you. Yeah, I mean, we've had biflation, if you want to call it that, for years. Another term for that was more along the lines of stagflation, stagnant wages, rising prices. The wages, obviously, you want those to go up, especially if prices are going up. So biflation, stagflation, we've had that forever. Whether we go into inflation, hyperinflation, or deflation, that's going to depend. See, that's what the Great Depression was all about. You had this huge speculative bubble, and then they basically pulled the air out of it and deflated it and reset the whole thing and started over again. And this is a discussion, a debate that I would say has been raging really since 2008. Is there going to be one more reset before they burn the house down with regards to the dollar? Some people say yes, some people say no. I say ask these big shots whose faces you'll never see on TV, because they're the ones that are going to drive this. Or maybe this time it's Moscow and Shanghai that drive it, and it's not. And maybe it's really truly is out of the Anglo-American banking system's hands. Maybe they're just grabbing up whatever they can grab before these other guys that have the financial power burn the house down. I don't know which way this is going to go. What I tell people is you need to be prepared for every eventuality, and you need to be prepared for hostile attacks on your finances. And that's why I mentioned, the direct registration and certification, if at all possible, of stocks and that sort of thing. And don't get involved in these futures games, because it's all rigged. They admit it, for crying out loud. You can't win that game. It's like going to the casino and playing roulette. That casino, they don't get all that free, the free booze and the big lights and all that stuff by losing. The house wins. That's the same way that this financial system is. You have to understand that. You are going in there with the chips stacked against you. You're not, I had a winning trade. Yeah, guess what? The guy who's playing the one-armed bandit, they win and the coins come out and all that stuff. And they win every once in a while. But you know why they do that? Because it keeps them there.
Right.
In the aggregate, in the end, who wins? The house.
Yeah.
So,
Andy, what do you think? Do you think the uprising in we hear Ferguson and Baltimore and Chicago and Detroit and Los Angeles, and they crop up all over the place. It usually precipitated by maybe a minority, a young man, maybe being shot or beaten by purportedly by a police officer, and then there's riots in the street. But do you think that that's the really reason why they're rioting the street, or is there underlying causes for that they're not mentioning?
I think there's a lot of underlying causes. I mean, you look at people everywhere. I mean, they just had this thing down in Texas. We've been taught also, by the media, they sensationalize violence. And just like they sensationalize living on credit cards. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Look at the video games that the kids grow up playing. Everything is kill, kill, kill. Right. And so what surprises should it be when you put a mob of people in the streets and then, basically you've got a bunch of gasoline and somebody lights a match? I think there's economic drivers to that as well. Even in the inner cities, you look at people that are on government assistance. I mean, they don't live a fantastic life, and a lot of that's by choice. Don't get me wrong. I'm not engaging in a pity party for these people, because most of them don't want to work, and I'm talking across the entire racial spectrum. It's just as much a white problem as it is any other problem.
Right. Well, when the immigrants came over here from Europe, they didn't have jobs. They didn't even speak English. They lived in their ethnic ghettos. But there's one thing that drove every one of them, and that is that they wanted to work. They wanted to be productive. They had an opportunity because they didn't have any corporate government structure preventing them from making money, and they all found their own ways of doing so. Some worked in factories. Some became carpenters. Some opened up retail stores. Some just swept the streets. My father, when he came over here, he did not speak English, and in fact, when he passed away 50 years later, he still didn't speak English the way you can understand it, and yet he opened up his own factory. He worked in a Polish piano factory, and what they would do at the end of the day, they would beat him up because he worked harder than anyone else, because he wanted to prove that he can polish the pianos better than anyone else, and he could. And he worked harder, and as a result of working harder, they beat the heck out of him at the end of every day. But he kept on coming back, and he made money, actually made money to survive polishing pianos. Now, today, a story like that, people would be in jail. There would be all sorts of organizations. The company would be closed down and everything. But no one is given the opportunity today. And these kids are not taught that you have to make the opportunity. It's your responsibility to make money. It's not the school system. It's not your parents. It's not the government. It's not the city. It's not the store store downstairs. It is your responsibility to learn how to earn a living, and you have to go out there and try everything and anything until you succeed. We don't do that anymore at all.
No, you're right. The work ethic of the people that came over, and really they're the ones that built this country. We call them immigrants, but what they did exactly what you said. They came here with a drive. They came here with motivation like you don't see at all today.
Right.
And that's the problem is today is that as a society, and people are going to get mad. I don't really care. I don't have any clients to lose anymore.
Yeah.
But, we're pampered. We are a bunch of, soft, limp-wristed people in this country, and we're coddled. And, it's cradle to grave. You hear that all the time. And what's happened is it's basically taken away that spirit of hard work, that work ethic that people had 100 years ago or 50 years ago. And it's gone. You don't see it. Well, if I don't have something, it must be your fault, or it must be Preston's fault, or it must be the government's fault. It's never my fault. Do you ever hear anybody say it's my fault? Nobody wants to own it. And that's why we are where we are. Yeah. Because that's a human problem. That's a psychological human nature problem. You're not going to solve that with policy.
When I worked for an oil company, they closed the location down. They actually sold the location to a financial institution. And I was called in after a while, and they said, well, we're doing away with jobs. You're next. Goodbye. and they gave me a little severance and stuff like that, and they said you can, you've been here long enough, you get the retirement was practically nothing. I was 49 years old at the time, so I got, I didn't hardly get anything. But I remember driving to my wife's audiology practice, and to tell her that I lost my job, and I passed by the unemployment office, and I looked at it, and I said to myself, I don't want to stand in line. Oh, God, I can't. I couldn't stomach standing in line. So I went to the office, and I helped a friend start a new business. I said, I think I want to start this business. I want to expand this business for him. And I went to her office, and had no room at all. I just sat in the corner, and I started my own business. I mean, it was natural. Like I stopped there. I almost stopped to apply for unemployment. Never did. Didn't make money for 2 years. Lost. Every dime I went into this new business enterprise, and today I have the largest occupational health testing company in the state of Oklahoma. But that's the way I was brought up. You don't sit there and wait for someone to give you money. You find a way to make it. Now, did I succeed at first? No, I failed miserably several times, and I should have given up. But I never did. Every time I failed, I got so angry I came back again, and I came back with a vengeance. And then when I finally made it, I hired this guy who stole my entire database and destroyed my company, and I had started over again. I did it all over again. But today I have a company that has several employees that get paid well, and I don't even take money from the company. I just pay them well, and I just say, just let me know when you need something. But it seems that mentality doesn't exist anymore. I mean, people would be running to the unemployment agency and saying, well, I got so many months of unemployment, and then when it runs out, I'll look for a job.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And the government's enabled that by continually increasing the number of weeks that you can collect. It used to be 26 weeks. I think the last time I looked, it's 104 now.
Wow.
They had done that during the 2008, 2009 period. So they basically increased it almost by 4 times the amount of unemployment that people can collect. And it's just like, all right, hey, if somebody needs it for a couple of weeks, all right, I lost my job. I'm going to start looking today. But in the meantime, I need to feed the family. You collect for a couple of weeks, you find something else, you scrape, and you get back on track. It's not like that anymore. All this government welfare, it's a career option now for people. They see their parents do it. They see their relatives do it. They see their friends doing it. And why should I go and work, and do the things that you do and have to do to work when I can sit and play Xbox all day and eat free pizza?
Yeah.
I mean, sir, that's where we're at.
Yeah, just the thought. I never forget that. Just the thought of standing online, filling out papers, and to get a check. I couldn't do it. And I know it sounds crazy. I could not do it. I said I'd rather starve to death. I would rather die than do that. And yet I had paid in all these years, and it was my money that I was getting back because I paid into unemployment. And all I was doing, getting some of my money back, and I still couldn't do it. Well, Andy, with that, we are well past the witching hour, and we are out of time. And our board operator here is yelling at me. I mean, he's waving at me, and he's going to start hitting me soon. He's bigger than I am, so I got to be real careful. Exactly. So I'd like to give you the next 1 minute to tell our listeners about what you're doing and how they can reach you if you'd like them to contact you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the people. I've had some emails over the past few months, people wondering, hey, you gave up on this business, and how are you doing? I landed on my feet, fortunately. I'm thankful for that. I've been blessed amazingly. I have a job. I work with an ambulance company. I kind of fell back on some former education and training that I had. So I'm doing okay.
Great.
I do appreciate people asking, though. It means a lot to know that I'm in their thoughts, but I'm doing well. I need you, and that's not just you, Joe, but everybody, to push me harder to write more articles. The next one that I have, it's in the formation stages. It's going to be called "If the Government Ran a Lemonade Stand," and I've got an outline for it. But you need to kick me in the tail end here a little bit to actually get it done and get it out there. And it's going to be a little satire, but it's going to be truthful satire. If people want to get in touch with me, I still do have the company's website up there, even though we're not in operation anymore, just because so many articles are on that site and people have links back there. And if I took it down, all those links would break. So Sutton-associates.net, there's a contact form there. You can reach me. Or you can also reach me at MTC, standing for My 2 Cents, at AndySutton.com.
Okay.
So either one of those works fine to get in touch with me. Drop me a line if you want to hear about something. Write me, because there's so much. I've written so many articles. It's kind of like, I feel like I wrote this before. So if you have something that you want to hear about that's new and you haven't heard about before, drop me a line. But Joe, you got to kick me in the butt.
Okay, we'll do.
All right.
Okay, and by the way, before I forget, my wife Erin sends her love. Okay.
I appreciate it.
Okay, Andy, thank you so much for being our guest today. All right, and I hope you'll accept our invitation to return the third Thursday of next month as well. Okay, folks. Okay, we're getting on. Okay. Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, as my wife says, you are either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, folks, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.